Hello everybody, in today's video I'm going to look at preparing the edges of a square end. I'm Simon and welcome to Oakside Saddlery. So on the bench we have a little short piece, it's an offcut of Sedgwick's bridle leather. It's about 3.5–4mm thick, perfect for what we want. All we're going to do is cut a square across there and then we'll simulate as though we was joining these two ends together. So let's mark that first square up. So I want my edge. Remember what I said before is my edge is too thick and doesn't fit on here, so I'll just normally I'll do this on the edge of a bench, but I'll do it on a plate today. So butt it up nice and square, draw my line, rid of that. So I have my mark on there, we can see that nice cut for where it is. I'm going to use my single head knife for this one. So single head knives are a common saddlery tool, one of my favourite tools as a go-to. I'm standing quite a way away, but I'm going to line it up, start to cut, and then just basically push down across the bench and roll it into it. We'll do another video, probably the next one, on a bit more on using some of these. So I've now got two pieces of leather and these are my square ends. Before we join these, we've got to figure out which is going to be the top piece. So we're just making an assumption that this is our top piece. So this is the grain side of the leather. That's the top part, what you normally see. And then we have the flesh side, which is the back of the leather. So you can see the two differences. If we're joining these together, we need to know which is the top and which is the bottom so that we can always keep the same size, and it will affect it when we come to skiving. We'll concentrate on just the one piece for the time being. Now, before we actually do anything, what I need to do is take them corners off, because these corners here, if I start messing about with it, you can see it starts to get a little fluffy on it and it's not very nice. So we're just going to nick these corners off. It's a very tiny, very small little part. So all we're going to do is lay it down, line up again my head knife and just take a little slice. Same on the other side, little slice. Get rid of them, don't want them on my bench. So that's our edges then, our nice corner all sorted out, and as we can see there, it's much smoother, it's much nicer. If we're roughing on it, it doesn't have such a sharp point and works well. So we spoke before about some creases, so let's put a crease on the, and then we're going to use our part here. So we go back on the toe, remember. So there's our nice corner, so forward on the edge there, back on the toe, up to there, and again on this side, down to there, and forward on the heel. There is our nice end. It's got a bit of creasing around it, looks quite tidy, but we need to sort these square edges, because just like the corners, the edges there also have a square. So if we look at that cross section on there, we can see that is really square. So what we want to do is just shake these edges off. Now if we're joining these together, we can do the flesh side, the grain side on this, so we can do that straight off. So we'll do one in a number one. So this is our edge. So this is a number one. I think they rename them different now. If you look closer, you can see there's a little channel at the end, smooth on the back. There's a little sharp point just down in the edge there. So just in here, there's a little point, a sharp blade, and a channel there. So the idea of these is you use them at a 45-degree angle. So you hold it against your leather at a 45-degree angle. So this is number one. And we can see that takes that little small piece off of there. And now we have, this is a number two. So a number two, a little bit bigger. If we compare the two together, you can see that you've got a one and a two there. So the two is slightly bigger, it will take a bigger channel off. So that took the number one off of it. Let's do the rest of this in a number two. So there we go, corner. Don't forget to do the corners. Little corner there. And again on this one, you want to make sure your hand and everything stays the same, because if you start changing the angle, it changes how deep that cut is. So you want to make sure you set yourself up 45-degree angle, slide it down so as far as you would need to go. Get rid of them. I'm going to put this as a number two as well, so I'm going to start back here somewhere. So again, set that angle so it's the same each time, and then just push it in and you get your nice little cut on it. So you can see it takes a bit more off from what that was of that number one. So let's see edges there. Let's have a little, for instance, say we're going to do my stitching, and my stitching is going to stop there. So somewhere around that point there. So I'm going to use my other screw crease, because I have two, remember. I have one for my edges and one what I use for my stitching. So on this one, all I'm going to do is run it down in a line. I'm just making this up, remember. I'm going to stop short. I don't want to go right over the edge if I can help it. And again, the same there, just going to stop short on that. So this is roughly where my stitches are going to finish. I'm going to put a little stitch mark in there So this stitch marker, although I call them a stitch marker, they're not a stitch marker. These are stitching irons. I don't use them as stitching irons. I don't punch right through my leather, I just go for the edges of it. So we'll talk again in a later video about how to use these. So my first point is going to be just over that edge, and I'll make a mark so I can see where it is, line it up, and coincidentally that is exactly what I need to mark it, isn't it? I'm going to do the same on this side. Got my little mark, can see it, line it up. Yeah, so we have some stitches. So this is where I would stitch through. Again, remember I've used this as a pricking iron rather than a stitching iron. So that is where the two pieces, when they join together, is going to go to. So if we think the stitch is going to finish there, so if we're going to join two pieces of leather together, I don't want to edge that, because if I edge it, if you look at that, you see that channel? There's a nice channel, it just sits inside there. I don't want that. I want it to sit properly flush. So again, if we look at this, it's nice and flush, and if we stitch that right, we wouldn't see this join at all, so it would be there. We can improve this with skiving and stuff, again, a later video. So what we need to look at for there is we find our number 2 edge that I put down somewhere safe. There it is, our number 2 edge, and I want it to start from where that last stitch mark is. So I'm just going to guess it's around there. So there's my mark, place it on, so I'm going to edge that flesh side out. Same on the other side, but it's going to be roughly where that is, isn't it? So there we go, and that was there. So we have one end, so this would be our top piece, with a few stitches where we would stitch, edged nicely around this side, the corners nicked off, edged at the part what's not joining, and then the bit that is going to join isn't edged. So that would sit on there. Now we can't leave it like that because we'd need to prep the other end, so a quick go on the other end at the same time might even just show it. So the first part we're going to look at is creasing it. So again, I'm just going to do this cold this time, I'm not going to heat it up. So we just guess it needs to come down there somewhere. It needs to come around there somewhere. Not fussed about the rest of it, not fussed about the end. I'm going to nick my corners again. So that comes off there, that comes off there, get rid of that. I can edge the flesh side then, so the flesh side is going to come all the way through there, because they're not joining, are they? Nick the corners there. We think most of this stuff with these is at a 45-degree angle. It's very important for us, 45-degree angle. People who know me will laugh because they know what I talk about if I mention a 45-degree angle. But in this case, it's for leather. On the other side, this is where they're going to cross, isn't it? So they're going to stitch at that point there. So there's our last hole, and that first stitch is going to come through on the outside of that leather. So that'll be our first one, which means when we edge this, it's going to come from that point there. So I'm just going to mark it. There's one, and the one on the other side will be in a similar place. There's the other one. So again, from here, push it out. We've got our cut. This one here, when we get to a point like this, it's a lot easier just to make a small nick the wrong way where it feels cack-handed, and then come from the other side and come down to meet it. And as you meet that last part, it will just come off. Get rid of them. Now, there's our two ends. These are what would join together. We can put them across there. We've got some nice bit of stitching, and as it joins, we'll have a stitch over that end, grained on this side, edged on that side, grain and grain, flesh and flesh. Two nice edges all put together, nice and tidy. It'd look smart, wouldn't it, if it was done like that? Yeah, so a short video for today. That's the first part we're going to look at. I'm going to look, the next bit, we'll look at how to improve, or the next video, of putting a skive edge on there. So a slightly different video, and we'll put a skived edge on that. So thank you very much for today. The sun's just starting to creep in on the corner there. Remember, if you like my videos and you want to know some more, then think about subscribing. But otherwise, enjoy your day and enjoy your time in your leather work. Goodbye.